I think we are sharing the screen. All right, so you guys are working on creating and deleting dummy account. The next thing you should work on is temporarily lock and unlock a user account. So you can use the following syntax for that. So you can see sudo passwd and then -l-u, so probably lock and unlock, right? A user account. To add or delete a personalized group, use the following syntax respectively. So add group, del group. Okay. Remember that whenever you create an account, you create a group for that account as well. So like when you create dummy1 as a user, you will also create the group dummy. Right? It's one of those things that's kind of odd about Linux, but it has to be that way for the logic to work. All right. To add a user to a group, use the following syntax. So sudo add user, username, group name. So you can see that command, and you can view it being added in the etc group file. This is the thing that I was saying to you guys, the Unix way, right? This is what the Unix way means. It means that everything is a file, everything is stored, and we went over the history, so you guys saw. And so we went over it. And the reason probably why Windows isn't like this is simply that they want to hide it because they sell it, right? So they want to make. All right. Sorry. Dead. Right, here we go. So user profile and security, as you know, a lot of this is about security, securing accounts. So essentially this one talks about creating a profile and changing it. So that means that every time that you create an account, before the account is created, actually there's a profile in the system that is retrieved and the default parameters are read from that profile, and then every account gets, those default values, but you can change it. So when a new user is created, the add user utility creates a brand new home directory name, username respectively. The default profile is modeled after the contents found in the directory etc scal, right? So which includes all profile basics. All right, so you can take a look at that. Right, so this is, you can check permissions of a home directory. So go through that. You can remove world readable permissions. So you guys already know how to do this, right? So you know how to chmod and do the number calculation. So you can reverse this back to figure out what the flags are for this, or just run the command before print this before and after the command, and then you'll see what changed essentially. Does that make sense? So go through that. Right, and it talks about changing. You can change the profile so that this is the default settings that are given to every user. You guys understand? So this essentially talks about that profile and the default values. And if this is the directory mode that by default will be assigned to every account. Got it? The little flags. All right. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, please.
So,
Well, I mean, just follow the instructions here of what it says. I think with some of these, I simply explain things, so I'm not every bullet you have to do something with, right? So it just says, I mean, we can read through it if you'd like. So let's see. So if your server will be home to multiple users, you should pay close attention to the user home directory permissions to ensure confidentiality. So that's like, if you guys are students and one student could look at the homework of the other students, so you make sure that those settings are correct so that students can't see the work of other students. You see, that's what this is talking about. So by default, user home directories and Ubuntu are created with world readable, world read and execute permissions. This means that all users can browse and access the contents of other users' home directories. And this may not be suitable for your environment. For instance, with homework assignments, you don't want cheating and things like that. Got it? So that's what this is saying. So you can check that those values by going into the profile, right? And whenever you create the accounts, it'll create them with these permissions. Or if you don't want that, then you just go to that file, change them, and then now maybe you make it so that they're not world readable, right? So you can do to verify your current user's home directory permissions. So you can go to your own home directory and use the following syntax. So this just shows you the flags, the access control parameters or modes. The following output shows that the directory home username has world readable permissions. So you should understand that this means read write. So see here, rest of the world can read your files, right? So that's what that means for this user. But if you wanted to change it, you can remove the world readable permissions using the following syntax. Sudo chmod 0750 home username. Okay. So that just, as you know, we did this in one of the lectures where I showed you how to take all the binary representation of these values and convert it into the numeric representation of it. So that's what this is doing. So if you wanted to change it so that by default, this is no longer an R, but it's now just a little dash, then you could do that in one shot by changing this parameter in the profile. That's what this is saying. So a much more efficient approach, instead of doing it manually, approach to the matter would be to modify the add user global default permissions when creating user home folders. Simply edit the file etc add user configuration and modify this directory mode variable to something appropriate so that all new home directories will receive correct permissions. And that's directory mode 0750. After correcting the directory permissions using any of the previously mentioned techniques, add another user and verify the results using the following syntax. So yeah, actually so to answer your question, the lab is asking that you do. Yeah. And then just reverse it back if you want. You can easily do that. So you can do it once, create an account, look at the permissions, right? And it'll be world readable. Then go to this file, change directory mode to that 0750, create a new account, and hopefully it'll create a folder where the permissions are not world readable, right? And then you'll essentially provide those screenshots, and then after, just reverse it back to the way it was. So whenever you make it, so one thing I will suggest, whenever you make a change to any of these files, if you're going to be making a lot of changes to a file, create a backup. So just do something like CP this file into the same file with the same name, and then just add .backup or something like that. And that way you have it so that you can retrieve it, okay? So if you're going to be making massive changes to a file, I strongly recommend that you always make a backup. If you're just going to change a parameter such as this one, comment out the line and then add the second line so you have it as a reference. Put your name on it even, at the end, like in a comment, just so that you know where you made the change. Does that make sense? That's a thing I've seen actually be a problem where students modify a file a lot and then unfortunately they didn't have a copy, so you'll have to create a new VM if you break something, right? So you don't want to do that. So it's always a good idea to create a backup of the whole file and also comment out whatever you're doing. Any questions? Yeah, so do that. After correcting the directory permission using any of the previously mentioned techniques, add another user and verify the results using the following syntax. If you see any difference, report your results. The results should show that world readable permissions have been removed. You see that? And then after that, you can remove the folder you added for this user. Yeah, good question. Any other questions? Okay, great. I'll let you guys. So you have to do that. Then we have groups. So some groups allow access to files or directories. For example, the ADM group allows users to read files in var log. But some groups allow access to certain devices. For example, the dial out group allows access to the serial ports via files in the dev folder. So essentially here, it's simple. Just try to read the file. var log syslog with user and with the account you created. Do you notice any difference? So essentially one will be a sudoer maybe and one won't. And so it should show something different that you can't read the file. So that's an easy one. Sudo, go to the etc sudoers. What do you see? Usually members of the admin group can gain sudo privileges. The admin group is specified in the sudoers file. So there will be something there, a variable. And you can just, it's essentially, you just add them. It's a list, and you can add any account that you want to make it into a sudoer, as long as you have the sudo privilege. All right. No questions. This one is probably one. So as you can see, we're almost at the end. We just have two things to look at. This one's a bit not difficult, I would say, but one of the hardest parts of this. So what is SSH? Anyone know what SSH is? What's SSH? Secure shell, right? So it's basically a way, and I think we did probably an example of this. I SSH into the same machine. So it's something called creating a tunnel, which is nothing more than packets that go out are now wrapped in another header that provides encryption, right? And that's the SSH, secure shell. So you just send out encrypted packets and people can't read your what you're saying and the thing. So that's SSH. So in this example, you're going to create you're going to block SSH by using groups. Okay, so restrict the service to a specific account. Okay, so restrict SSH access to only user accounts that should have it. Okay, so for example, you may create a group called deny SSH. So what that means is you're going to create a group, deny SSH, and then you put any account that's in that group will not have access to SSH. You guys see that? So it's a very nice way of dealing with it. So, so for example, you may create a group called deny SSH and add the group name as the value associated with the deny group's variable located in etc SSH config. All right, so this file is related to SSH and how it operates, and it has essentially a little variable called deny groups. So then it's a list, so you can just add to that variable a group such as deny SSH that you're going to create, and any account in it will be denied the use of SSH. So it's a security thing. So the steps are simple. Add the value, deny groups, deny SSH. Okay, so you'll do that. Then add your denied SSH users to the group deny SSH. So something like sudo add user username deny SSH. You'll have to restart the SSH service and then test it. Now, I said putty, but you can use anything that you want to test it. But yeah, that's the idea. Any questions on this one? So you have to create a group and you have to go to this file and add that group to it. And then of course, when you create the group, you have to also have an account that's in that group that's denied. So what I would suggest is test it before adding to the group and after. Okay. Questions? No questions? Does this one make sense? It's one of the hardest ones. So is this clear for everyone? All right, good. All right, and then this one, then the last one is your scripting problem. So I'll let you guys work on this one. I've already read it. So the idea is create a text file and then run the command. So you can, if we do this in Python, I'll just give you some basics of what you could do. Let's go over here. VMs. Let me start the VM again. So let's start the VM and we're going to go over that script. Sure. Okay. That's a good idea. You have to create a text file, so I'll do that in the sample. Again, the idea of this, what if you had 3,000, users that you want to add to the system? That would be a lot of work, right? You can spend a couple of days doing that. Or you just have a script that does it automatically. And what if it's repetitive and you have to do this twice, every twice a month, right? Every 15 days. Do you want to just spend all your time creating accounts? What if your boss doesn't know about this and they just like, okay, do this, I'll give you 2 weeks, and you're like, can do this in 15 minutes. You see what I'm saying? So it's good to have these knowledge, know how to do this. All right, and I think this is a good example of why automation can be really useful. Okay. There's this joke that there's these people in Silicon Valley, these software engineers, that get paid like $300,000 or something, and they're given like a month to do something, and they're so good they do it in probably like an afternoon. It's not their fault that they're really good, right? The better you are at something, the more efficient you become. And where a normal person would have to spend 2 weeks, you might be able to do it in a day or two if you really know what to do. So it's also there's another joke similar to that you have like a boom box or some device and you take it to be repaired, and then you have a technician that looks at it. They grab a marker like this and they just go, and it starts working. Then the person charges $300 or so, right? And you're like, $300 for just that? No, no, no. $300 for it's $0 for doing this. It's $300 for knowing where to do this. Do you see my point? Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of the idea with this. Okay. All right. So let's go back to the VM. So this is a simple script, but I'll walk you through some of the basics of it. Okay, here we are. Okay. So ls-l cd desktop clear ls-l cd its 72 spring 2025. All right, so cd accounts manager. All right, so we need a file. So I'm just going to create a file here. The list. Let's call it the list. Okay, and you can have however you want. So this is something that you would send to whoever, right, is bringing the people. They would provide this list to you. So you can do it by last name, however you want to do it. So let's do Smith, John, Mary, what is it? Johnson, Mary, something else, right? So you have a list of accounts. That's it. So then you're going to create also a script. I'm going to do nano, um, you know, add users, UI, just like that. And so you can add import OS in case you want to use OS. The key thing that you need to use is either user add or add user, essentially. So I'll let you figure that out. So either add user or user. And keep in mind that these have flags associated with it. So it'd be like dash F and dash O and things like that. So you have to figure that out now. But then what you need to do is you need to read the values from the file, and I'll help you with that. But you need to run this from your Python script. So one way of doing it is to use some process. We've used that before, I believe. Let's do uh, import some. I'm sure I've done this. Some process. I'm just going to make sure I get the right library. Yes, there we go. All right, so then clear ls-l. So sub process allows you should allow you to run Linux commands from a Python script. So you can just all you need is commands list. And the syntax for this is something like this. So you add first the um, commands, something like user add. I'll just do ls. And then any flags get added, get listed. So for instance, ls dash l. If you remember, this is equivalent to the command in the terminal ls space dash l, right? Yeah. These are square brackets. It's a list. These are square brackets. But do you guys understand what I'm doing yet? If I had another flag, yeah, let's say something like that. Yeah, then I would do this. Basically like that. All right, so this is the key that you this can help you. Yeah, that's a good point. In the terminal, you can do that. So because you can do that in the terminal, then you should be able to do that here. So for instance, if you were doing pipe, oh sorry, pipe, right? You could do that. If you want to add multiple commands in Linux and run them together, you do something like this. Semicolon. And then, so we can try this one. We can try to make it work. So let me remove the dash A because that doesn't part. But let's do ls dash l, and then let's do uptime. Simple one. So I'm doing two commands, right? So let's try that. And then the way that it runs, it should be, I think it's subprocess.run. Run, and what you provide in here is the commands list. Say commands list. All right. Sorry. This is semicolon. All right. So let's run this one. So if it works, you should get a listing of all the files in here and then the uptime. Okay, so it's having an issue with the semicolon. Well, let's try it here. ls-l. Let's say it's semicolon. To here it worked. It gave me the ls-lma uptime. Hmm. It didn't like it on the. Let me take a look. It's ls space dash l semicolon. Take a look. Okay. So it's like this, according to something I found. A list of lists. Oh, okay. Let's try. Do you guys see this? So let me try it. It wants a list of lists according to the example I found. So, yeah, apparently no. So actually, one thing I'm missing is the way that they did that functionality is like this. So makes me think it's not simple. Command for command in commands. That's how they did it. So now 1, 2, 3, 4. The command. Oh, that was wrong. And four. Yep. Thank you. All right, so let's try this one. Clear. Yeah, hello. So if you want to achieve the functionality that you wanted, this is one way of doing it. You can have a list of lists, just iterate through them. Does that make sense, guys? Make sense? So the way that I did it is you create a list of lists, so then you iterate through each list, and you're running one at a time in sequence. Yeah, please. Yeah, I removed the semicolon. It's not there. You see that? I couldn't make that. It made sense because it ran on the terminal, but there may be a way of doing it. I think there's a Spring version of this. Let me try another one. There seems to be a command string approach. So I'm just going to do command string. And this one would be essentially ls-l semicolon, what it was uptime, right? So then you just have to tell it uh, subprocess dot run. And essentially you just have to specify, I think you have to tell it tax equal true. So let me run it without, and let's just see what happens. But obviously it might want a list by default. So let's try this first. Clear. We should see that output twice now. So it didn't like that, no such file. Let's add text equal true. Just to shell equal true as well. All right, we'll try that. There you go. That worked. Does that make sense? So you can use the list approach or you can use the string approach. And you can run up two commands. Got it? Any questions? Anybody? And play with it so you can, just go sub-process on run and look at all the flags. There's more. Okay. All right. So does this make sense, guys? This assignment. So read in the users from the text file, which you should know how to do. And then obviously the command is going to be add user or user add. Create 30 of them and write the script for it. Provide evidence that it worked. All right. So I'll let you guys work on this. So that's the whole lab. So let me create the link here on so right space. You want to see that too? Yeah. I can do that. All right. So to read the file should be pretty straightforward. You create a file handler, so f read, and you use open, and then you say, what was the name of the file? It's like it was the list actually. So you say the list, and then R for read, okay, and then it's just a loop, so you can do for line in f underscore read dot read lines. This will just return a list essentially of every line. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, print line. I only have two in the file if I remember correctly. So we can run it, hit clear. And you can see Smith John and Johnson Mary. Then you can split on comma. Whenever you split, it returns the values into an array, essentially a list, and then you can just retrieve them. So that you can use them in the password, just create a random password, but then say you have to change your password when you first log in. And that's something that you can do in minutes. Got it, guys? Any other questions about this homework assignment? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and create the link for it, and it'll be loaded from day. So this is an easy one. Go back to table of contents. Okay, create here. New assignment. Slow. Right. Um, so this one is going to be homework, account management. That should be clear enough. Right. Links. So this will be due, say it's the 19th. So it'll be due on the 26th by 10 p.m. And stay open till the 1st. I'll just say complete the attached word. Got it? Pretty easy. Right, so I created the link and got your assignment. So I'll say, so that's basically the discussion today on the topic. Work on it, please, and I'll stay till the end of the class if you guys have questions on anything. All right, that has been created here. There it is. I'll end the recording here.